All right, guys, second topic tonight is Pope. Catholics don't have to breed like rabbits. I'm going to be bringing up a little scripture, of course, on this topic. So here we go. Second topic for tonight. And by the way, I think I did a really good job on the image for this one. So
Pope Francis had some interesting things to say when asked about contraception aboard the papal plane on Monday, comparing humans to furry animals known for their breeding habits. I think you know what I mean.
Some think that, excuse me if I use this word, that in order to be good Catholics, we have to be like rabbits. No. Responsible paternity, that is clear.
I love this guy. Joining us to speak about the pontiff's latest comments on reproduction is HuffPost religion editor, the Reverend Paul Rauschenbusch. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
I didn't see this one. I typically know where he's going.
Yeah.
I didn't see this one coming.
No, breeding like rabbits was not something people expected him to say.
Not the Pope.
Yeah, it took a lot of people by surprise. And this was another example of him kind of threading this weird needle of not really appealing to people on the right. They're beginning to call him the blabbermouth Pope.
Yeah.
But on the left, he also didn't come out and say, and so everyone should use contraception. He's actually, you know, he's saying people should not be having, you know, many children that they can't be responsible for, but they need to use traditional Catholic methods of contraception.
Pulling out. I'm just trying to understand what a traditional Catholic method.
I think it is. I think it is not having sex actually at all during the time.
You think I'm not Catholic? I'd be a really shitty Catholic.
You're clearly, but it's not having sex when the woman is most prone to get
the
pregnancy.
rhythm method. Okay,
something like that. And
wow,
which some people don't realize is actually a progress for the Catholic Church. In the early 20th century, you were always supposed to have sex with the intention of getting pregnant. You were never supposed to not.
Right, sex was only for reproduction.
Exactly, and then they kind of realized, no, that's not going to work. So then they introduced this method: only have sex if you're don't want to get pregnant. Don't have sex during these 3 or 4 days when you're most likely to get pregnant.
Wow, and the Pope, it was in the Philippines not too long ago, talking about how artificial contraception is a bad thing. So in some ways, this is becoming a conservative narrative.
Well, it's a very traditional Catholic narrative. It's not changed anything. It's exactly what the Catholic Church has taught. But it is reminding people, you know, it's reminding Catholics that the slight shift is you don't have to have a lot of children to be a good Catholic. And that is a change. I mean, he was he rebuked this woman who had had 7 cesarean because he said, you're going to die and leave 7 children an orphan. So it's not good to just have as many kids as you can. Be responsible parents.
So Catholics, Christians, just be very responsible. That's all. Whose story was this?
Turn into the Catholic bashing show, man.
I know. Well, the name of the show is Catholics, Fox, and Heaven. So this is the last story on Catholicism.
I was
Catholic,
raised Catholic, and
so
I can tell you that I knew the father that I had when I was in high school, and I was confirmed Catholic and all that shit. The father I had was he believed in evolution before the Pope said it was okay. And it was like whoa. To me, that was actually a huge stepping stone in becoming an atheist, because I immediately realized that they are pretty much just accepting science and blending it in with their storyline as it comes, and so their storyline can never be wrong because God done did it.
Yeah, exactly.
and so, I mean, that was a real early stepping stone in me becoming an atheist. So I say, fine, keep switching and changing with the times and telling me how morality is objective and not subjective.
Well, no, that's the thing. That's a good point to bring up, TJ, is that this is what happens with religion, like you said. They change as society progresses. So as society progresses, they change their views on a lot of things. That's why we don't have slavery anymore. That's a good point to bring up. But Drew, you want to say anything on this?
Well, on that particular one you just mentioned, it's because our societies evolve. That's
correct.
The reason it
Correct. Exactly.
It's forced. You know, for instance, when people, and this is slightly off topic, I don't want to spend too much on it, but for instance, when people say the reason that Christianity is so much better than, for instance, Islam, you know, stuff that's going on in the Middle East and stuff. it's not necessarily because Christianity is that much better. It's because it's been forced to take a knee because of the Enlightenment and all the ideas that we've had and stuff. But
I tend to agree with that.
But specifically on this, I'm really curious. And TJ, you used to be a Catholic. What is the obsession with contraception? What is I don't get that. Is it like isn't it like the Aquinas thing or something?
There's not an issue.
At a base level, it's basically just propagating the religion.
Yeah,
because all of your children have to be raised Catholic. Honestly, I think it's just a way to keep fresh meat there for the clergy.
Yeah.
It could well,
in more than one way, fresh meat, keeping them in the pews to the next generation that are going to keep going.
Well, guys,
and also
keeping them on their knees, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, the statistics of this is when it comes to Catholics, okay, when it comes to contraceptives, or contraception, I should say, 99.9% of the women have used it in their life. I think it's 99% or 98%. Don't quote me on that, but it's very, very high in the 90s. They use contraceptives, so contraceptions. But what the fuck?
I believe that statistic includes methods like pulling out and shit like that. And so if that's a version of contraception because you're purposely trying to avoid it, and they include that, then sure, the statistic is going to be really high.
Exactly.
Well, the church is even against that too, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm spilling seed. I'm sure there's a Bible verse.
There is.
There is.
Go ahead, Arn.
And what this reminds me of, like that old adage, I must hurry and catch up with them, for I am their leader. And this is what the Catholic Church seems to be doing. They're following the trends that they're pretending to set. And I also thought it was ironic that eugenics is usually blamed on Darwinism, right? But eugenics has usually been the practice of religion, differential breeding, so that we can have, how the Islamification of Europe is supposed to come from differential breeding, just like, the Catholic conquest was supposed to be by everybody having as many kids as possible. They were supposed to outbreed everybody else. I think the Mormons tried that too. I think there's another Christian denomination that tried that same thing. But I had to wonder, why did they bring this pope in under the mysterious circumstances that there's another pope who just gives up his job and then has to go live in secret somewhere so that he's not facing arrest for his cover-up and his involvement in all of the pedophilia things and all of the other, because this guy was a disaster for the Catholic Church. Darth Benedict, the previous pope, he's the one that went into Africa and told people that use of contraceptives, specifically use of condoms, causes AIDS.
AIDS, correct, yeah.
So when you've got somebody that is that much of a disaster for public relations, they had to squirrel him away into a closet somewhere and get somebody seemingly more reasonable before he destroyed the entire empire.
And he was on the way to do that. Like you said, Arn, you brought up a good point with Ratzinger. Was what happened with him is when all these sexual abuse cases came out, he was in charge of this. He said, I want every case on my desk, and that's it. I don't want anybody to know about any of these cases. I want them on my desk. And he handled it all. And then, of course, when we became, Benedict, people, the word got out, and the Catholics didn't like it. So, of course, that's what happened. I think it was the last time anybody, I forget what they call it, resigned. I think it was in 600. The 7th century.
Wasn't that also under similar circumstances?
I'm not sure about that, but I know it was the 7th century was the last time when I forget what they call it, but we've
had a number of popes that were involved in some pretty lascivious scandals on their own.
Isn't he supposed to be God's representative on earth, in touch with him, speaks to him? Well, I guess all priests speak to them.
Yeah.
No, that's the prophet of the Mormon Church.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the other
all right,
30 other Christians.
I always thought the Pope had a special relationship with God. So it's okay, well, if this person's so special and he's supposed to have all this authority, and it's supposed to be God's I know God's hand guiding the bishops who vote for him, then how can this man decide that it's not God's will for him to be Pope and just to step down?
Yeah.
Well, I thought that was the case for a while. What was it? Papal infallibility used to be
correct. Yeah.
One of the a core tenet or whatever.
Yeah,
and I think didn't they just eventually just drop that off?
Well, they kind of had to because they made some recent changes. And I think this was Ratzinger that did this one also, where they just arbitrarily added another 7 deadly sins. So you've got 7 deadly sins that already aren't in the Bible, but then we're going to add in another 7 more. And the additional 7 that they added were hilarious because one of them was, you're not going to go against social justice. That was one of them. No kidding. And then one of the other deadly sins was that you shouldn't be insanely rich.
One thing I really want to bring up real
That's ironic.
One thing I want to bring up real quick is on this topic, and it actually goes with this topic where he said, hey, you should be more careful, you should pull out or whatever, you should be more careful and don't breed like rabbits. What I want to talk about here is...
I would love to see his face when he said pull out. That was hilarious.
What I want to bring up here is scripture. Genesis 1:28. I'm sure you guys know Genesis 1:28. I'm going to go over 2 different Bible verses here. Well, 2 different Bibles, I should say. Same verse. is, King James Bible. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. Okay, remember that. Now, also in the New Living Translation, which is a little bit different, then God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiplied, fill the earth and govern it. Then it says, reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, and all the mammals that scurry along the ground. Now, I guess, do humans scurry along the ground? And are we considered animals? You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just so amazing when you read like the same scripture, like 1:28 of Genesis, and you just go through all the freaking books like I did today. I'm like, it's just translation. It's just the translations are just so fucked up, and it's just whatever Bible you want to adhere to. And this is what we say as skeptics, saying, hey, listen, there's translation errors, okay? Just look at one verse and look at all the Bibles and fucking read them and interpret them. You'll see the contradictions. You'll see the discrepancies in these fucking verses.
The fact that after Mark 12:8, it's actually just all bullshit made up.
After 12:8, yeah, of course, and that wasn't done until what, the 1600s King James version, I think, or something like that, right?
My favorite.
The scribe later on made it up. It's like, okay, well, yeah.
Arn?
If you're going to comparing, versions of the Bible, my favorite thing is there's this list. I can't remember where it is offhand. I'm sure it's in Leviticus, where they talk about the things that you're not allowed to eat. Right? There's this long list of things that you're not allowed to eat.
Leviticus, yeah.
And that list changes for every version of the Bible, so that you can eat. So like in ferrets are one of the things that you're not allowed to eat. Like I can't imagine anybody. Oh, a ferret! I should eat that.
Yeah.
But it's in one of the versions and not in the other. And then like I think it's the Darby Bible where everything in the Darby Bible is a lizard of some kind or other. So why don't they just make a shorter list and say you can't eat lizards? But what they're translating as lizards in this Bible is ferrets in this other Bible and crocodiles in this other one.
No.
Yeah, so they don't like gumbo.
And behemoths are what? Dinosaurs, right? Or something like that, right?
Yeah. Leviathan.
The behemoth is an elephant.
Yeah,
the unicorn is a rhinoceros.
That's right, yeah.
And Leviathan, I think, was the one in Job that is pretty much a fire dragon.
Joe?
Right?
It was turned into a fire dragon, but when you go into... I did a speech on Job's bestiary where I get
dragon.
They did add fire breathing after all, but initially the description is that of a Nile crocodile. It really is. I mean, it's a perfect description of a Nile crocodile, and then later they add fire breathing to it, as they tend to do.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. That being said, guys, let's...
One second. I think you're missing a very important thing.
Go, Paul.
They're being progressive with this, right? So he's saying you don't have to breed like rabbits. He should have said use a condom, but, whatever. But I think people are already one step ahead of him. I think people are already one step ahead of him. Because if you go on YouTube and you search fuck me in the ass for Jesus...
That's a good video.
You'll notice...
It's a good video. Good video, by the way. But no, seriously, I'm like, to end this topic here is just like, it's amazing the atrocities that are going on over in Africa right now, especially when you have these missionaries going over there and fucking saying, no, contraception? No, it's not good. It's against what the Lord said, and they, all the fucking cases, AIDS cases we got over there right now. Just think about if they just use contraceptives, condoms over there, how yeah, it wouldn't be that much of an issue, really, to a certain point.
Wouldn't the entire point of their religion be something like the entire point of God? The entire point of God would be something like to create as many souls as possible, to give the chance to be saved. Like the entire concept of it is like that he would want as many as possible, not as few as possible.
Somebody was doing a charity when I was in high school, which is a lifetime ago, for raising money for starving African kids. And I pointed out in high school, when I was in high school, however many decades ago, that I've been seeing pictures of starving African kids for as long as I've been alive, and I'm going to continue to see pictures of starving African kids. And while I support that they should be fed, I think that that's a symptom, and there's a problem that needs to be addressed, which is producing this. If you have children that you're constantly reproducing that you can't support, then maybe the birth rate is kind of the issue.
Yeah.
But when they come in and they say you can't use contraception, and the previous policy was that you were supposed to be fruitful and multiply and have as many kids as you possibly could, and then everything is militarized over there, right? So all the kids become some part of a military force for whatever reason in many places. I'm obviously not talking across the entire continent, but they have all these kids that are then getting into combat, so you need to have as many babies as possible so that you have as many soldiers as you can get. The whole thing is repugnant. But then when we're talking about, if we're talking about Africa, we're talking about the religious impact on Africa. Starving African kids is kind of the least of it, because then you've also got people who are killing these kids on the charge that they are witches.
Yeah.
And this is the clergy doing this.